Hey there, welcome to yet another SaaS Group Live AMA. Today we're talking about avoiding founder burnout, diffusing chronic stress, and achieving healthy high performance. And today with me is Neil. Neil, really happy to see you here with me. And Neil has worked with us at SaaS Group for a bit. But yeah, maybe you should do the intro.
Sure. Anna, thanks so much. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I'm so excited to be here to talk about this really important topic that affects us all as founders, as people working in high performance teams. This is a topic I've been on a journey on for several years now, and I'm hoping to bring some practical, actionable insights here for you today that are data driven. Really suitable for our tech ecosystem, and I'm excited to dive into it today. Thanks.
Cool, thank you. That's great. Great to see you here. Let's dig into your um, story with the whole space. So, how did you get interested in it? How did you start coaching and working with companies like SaaS Group?
Yeah, thanks, Anna. I come from a background in big tech. So I spent close to a decade moving from Seattle to London and Berlin, really working that treadmill and also unlocking a lot of value for myself in terms of financial independence, in terms of achieving family goals of mine, like getting married, moving abroad with a job. Global mobility has been really important to me and my family, and tech has been a vehicle for me to reach some of those big, hairy, audacious kind of 5-year life goals. And I've been really happy about that. So around the 10-year mark, I started to suffer some physical symptoms of burnout. And it was something that what was really something that was difficult for me to deal with. I'm used to being a top performer. I'm used to being a high performer. So I couldn't really make sense of why this stuff was slowing me down. And I needed to take a step back and get curious about that. So I actually left on a really good note. I delivered a major project and then I stepped out for 2 years to actually start my own coaching practice. And for 2 years have been building assets and basically products to deliver into use cases for well-being and burnout risk mitigation, so risk identification and mitigation for high performance individuals and teams in tech. And this has been a journey that I go on with the people that I work with because, as we said in the pre-brief, like, we're all human beings. So there is no expert who can tell you what to do. There are no easy solutions, but I come from a problem solving perspective. I really like to look for simple solutions to complex problems. That's what I was trained to do in tech, and that's what I try to do now when it comes to our well-being. Since then, I've also stepped into a full-time role at a late stage, super hyper growth startup that's private equity backed, and this has given me some fresh perspective now because I've gone from the big tech ecosystem to now working in a company of about 600 people. And yeah, I deliver programs and connect with teams and leaders who have high performance organizations with highly skilled individuals that if these individuals would suffer lost productive time or would not be, not be performing the way they are now, it becomes a challenge for the company to hit their roadmap and their product objectives. So I find it super interesting, and I'm really excited to get into the conversation here today with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I was speaking about high performance and, lately the news, I mean, we all saw it on LinkedIn. Quite a few companies have announced that their CEOs are resigning, and there was a piece in Sifted that we both um, read with Neil and then discussed
Right.
before going into this. It's really interesting, like why now? Like why 2023? I mean, it's taken a toll obviously on the entire SaaS ecosystem, but why do you think so many um, CEOs have resigned in 2023, and why some say that in 2024 we should expect even more resignations.
Yeah, it's a fascinating question, Anna. I was struck when I saw the data with this sudden spike in 2023, which is really discontinuous from the past 4 or 5 years of data in this particular report. And you can see on, I think, your LinkedIn and my LinkedIn, we've been posting about this. So, what I one perspective here, one question to ask is, how has a founder's experience of what they do change, and what are the external forces that may have changed in that time? Because there is certainly a very challenging fundraising environment out there. We have seen so many layoffs, restructurings, and reorganizations, as well as mergers, liquidations. It seems every day when I open up the news, there's someone who's affected, right? And this is across sectors in the startup ecosystem. It seems to be across countries as well. So, at the same time, when it comes to the task of the founder, we previously had this sort of golden age of the cult of the founder, the visionary, where this was coming from media, this was coming from also Silicon Valley, and I'm from the West Coast myself. When it comes to a crunch on profitability, when it comes to a change from being a loss leader delivering growth to now being responsible for P&Ls and really hiring and firing the right people who can guide those P&Ls, it's just, I think it's a slightly different task. And one way that I have tried to make sense of such changes when I've seen them or when I've worked with leaders is this SCARF method from Dr. David Rock. So SCARF looks at what is happening to our brain and our nervous system when external factors around us are changing. And it's very useful for helping me understand and unpack what's going on and then decide how I want to respond rather than react to it. So just to list this out and how it would apply to a founder in 2023 and 2024, the scarf kind of items here are status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. And these are really important to the way our nervous system interprets and engages with the world around us. So you can imagine that each of these has changed dramatically, whether you're a founder or whether you're a worker who's returned to office, maybe. So your status, the way you understood your status in 2022, who you are, what you do, what you're entitled to, what privileges you enjoy as a result of the work that you put in, the effort that you put in, has been recalibrated in some ways, and those can be kind of scary and unfamiliar as well. You know, this lack of certainty. Are we going to acquire someone and survive, or are we going to be acquired and be? You know, this is very real right now. As well, you know, the autonomy. Am I actually in the kind of control that I was in 2022, or how are my board, my investors playing a role there? And obviously, we want this isn't necessarily a good or bad thing, but it's a change. And so as human beings, we respond to change. And finally, man, relatedness and fairness. The relatedness in building the sense of community around your idea as a founder is one of the most precious experiences anyone can have in their life. So threats to that or disruption to that, including via layoffs or flat headcount, things like that, as well, hits on our fairness aspect as well. So I'm just here with a lot of empathy. I want to lead with that empathy when we come to data. Remember, there's a human behind every story, and each story might be different as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great that you mentioned acquisitions. I mean, for SaaS Group, it's really, really important because we know that no matter how streamlined and easy and like virtually stress-free you want to make an acquisition process, it is still a huge change. And for the founders, giving away their baby, even if they are staying with the company, it's still a big change. And we want to lead with that, empathy, asking like, why are you going into the deal in the first place? Is there a stress involved? Is there, a change on your personal level? Maybe there is something in the family that you want to attend, when you haven't felt present very much, so you want to be there, and kind of we're building from there the entire process to make sure, we're all aligned, because it's, yeah, as I mentioned, no matter how streamlined the process is, it's still a long-term relationship. So thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, so I want to, before we kind of go into dealing with burnout, I want to ask you about the ways to prevent it, right? How to make sure that you do not end up there. And as I mentioned in some posts previous to this AMA, we did another session with Tobias Günther, and he said a really fascinating thing, and it got me thinking about it from that perspective, that burnout is basically, you falling ill, right? And when you're falling into that stage, you're going for help, right? Even if you have like the first symptoms, you're asking for help. You're maybe going to the doctor. You maybe, I don't know, calling your mom saying, "Hey, I'm losing my voice. What should I do?"
Yeah.
So yeah, what are the ways to prevent burnout?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question. And I'm glad that we're talking about it more because I think the first step is to disrupt this superhero narrative, right? That we need to be more than human. We can certainly have wonderful or even amazing or even visionary ideas. We can be great leaders. We can be fascinating, compelling at leading people, but maybe we don't need to be superheroes because we can also be human. And one of my big things is identifying with this idea that there's a human underneath that armor. So we're often putting on these armors to go and do the difficult meeting, the investor due diligence, et cetera. That's great, but the first step is finding ways to reconnect with your kind of inner self there. Um, and I have a few ideas for how to do that. Like, for example, creativity is very important. So staying connected to a creative hobby and creative expression provides kind of asymmetrical advantages to you that can be quite advantageous for processing other things that are going on in your life. And for me personally, I come from a family of musicians, painters, sculptors, and visual artists, while my other side of the family are all business people. So this is something that works really well for me, trying to keep those two things in balance. But I want to take a step back first when we talk about intercepting or preventing burnout. It's really helpful to understand the kind of difference in definitions between when we've reached or an individual has reached burnout versus when an individual is currently living and experiencing symptoms of chronic stress. So, chronic stress is a state that unfortunately may become too familiar. And it typically means that instead of having spikes of getting really hyped and having a very intense engagement or an intense challenge and then recovering, our body and our nervous system cannot recover properly back to a baseline level. So we stay at this hypervigilant, hyperactive, sympathetic nervous system activation level, even on the weekend, even with family, even in evenings, having difficulty sleeping. This can lead to loss of appetite. It can affect our metabolism and things like this. And I recommend that people go to the World Health Organization, who have published, as well as the Mayo Clinic, have published some really interesting lists of kind of physical symptoms for burnout and chronic stress as well. The key difference is that a person who's experiencing chronic stress believes they can still win. They are still typically highly engaged. So they're seeing all these problems come in and they're going, I have to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do everything. So in that sense, they are optimistic versus someone who is at a burnout state. They're not firing in the same way anymore. They are reaching a state of deep habitual like cynicism about what is coming in, and they're thinking it doesn't matter what I do. There's no point. I can't affect it anyway. I should just stop. And and this can really, manifest differently and lead to more toxicity and things. And it's really tough to really comprehend these kind of subtle differences. But the most helpful one for me from Take That, which is a very great mental health nonprofit, is this idea of I can solve everything versus with burnout, it's like nothing matters. I shouldn't even try.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you were talking about at the beginning is like this honeymoon phase of a founder with,
Yeah.
with their chronic stress or with their burnout. Yeah, I'm a superhuman and this is my baby. I have to work and I have to take all those jobs and I have to learn. You have to stay alert at all times. Everything
Yeah.
is busy work. You're always kind of in a state of busy work. You're never like just um coming down thinking strategically. You're always like putting out fires. But it's been romanticized for a while. I mean, if you go to Twitter, even now,
For
you will
sure.
find, people just saying, oh, I've worked for 10 years, 20 hours per day before I hit the big milestone. And everyone's cheering. Everyone's like, yeah, you're the boss. Like, it's a toxic environment, but you're in there and you kind of, I don't think you can just stay there without being affected. So how to maybe build practices, and are there any tools that you could adopt to create
Yeah.
processes that are a little bit healthier for your setup as a founder?
Yeah, it's a great point. I wanted to stay on that question of the things that we see in our feeds for a moment because um, personally, I'm not anti-work, and I want to recognize and celebrate work ethic. I do think that sacrifice is often necessary to get where we want to go, and I'm totally cool with celebrating sacrifice. I think the difference is that we can actually do this in a way that is sustainable. So it's about sustainable excellence and sustainable high performance. If you do it in an unsustainable way, that's on you. Like we're each responsible for those setups. So just declaring like, hey, I've done this super unsustainably for a long time and I'm willing to pay for it. That's totally your decision. That's your autonomy. But I'm more inspired by examples of folks who made it sustainable and made themselves resilient because something will affect you. Change will come for you, and the question is more about how are you going to bounce back if that person who's in that cycle has a loss of a loved one or something. We may be affected by like 8 to 12 of these kind of sudden shifts in our lifetime. How are you going to be affected by I had a sudden shift earlier this year with a family health issue for someone in my immediate family. And yeah. So thank you for asking about this. I really think the keys are sustainable excellence and resilience because we're all going to face disruptive change. We're not working in a vacuum. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We discussed that during our technical due diligence AMA, and I'm not sure how. It was Chris Phillips who brought it up, but it was, how do you call it? It's a bus something phenomenon. So, like, basically, what happens if you're being hit by a bus,
Yes.
and you're a
Yes.
founder of a startup? Like, did you did you create a setup where you could just go to the hospital
Yep.
and have rest, and cure your broken foot or something, or
Yeah.
everything breaks down and you just, you cannot do anything about it?
Right, right. And I want to see us leverage our brilliance to design more resilient systems. Because if you design a resilient setup in the way that you've maybe empowered people or continue to invest in small amounts, you can avoid having to invest in a big way when something goes wrong. So I think this is a great pivot to the idea of okay, so what can we do to sort of predict, intercept, and defuse burnout risk? And the simplest thing that you can do is use some sort of self-diagnostic. So I've built a simple self-diagnostic that we've provided here that is non-clinical. This is not science or any kind of like therapeutic backwards looking thing. This is about taking a snapshot current state. It's built on Gallup methodology, so it's more from the organizational psychology lens of things. But this snapshot is really, really useful for individuals and teams because it allows you to benchmark what's happening right now and understand the kind of severity and urgency of what's going on for you. And when used as part of a regular practice, like let's say quarterly, you can use these snapshots to understand, okay, I've made some changes that have helped me here, or man, I still have a blind spot or a gap on this thing. I need to kind of proactively invest into this area more. So yeah, we can't improve what we can't track or report on. I'm very data driven. I come from running several HR analytics projects. So I was responsible for HR analytics for a department of 200 people in London. And that's part of how I got very interested in this idea of how can we treat this as a more of a systems topic and intercept it at scale rather than hoping that everyone has that great friend who's in their corner and just there just in the right moment to kind of interrupt the cycle, or the best manager who knows exactly the right questions to ask. Those are great if you have them, but I try to design more resilient systems and help leaders to design more resilient systems. And you've got to have data, you've got to have a snapshot to iterate on. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to just kind of reflect a little bit on what's going on. And even, even if you think everything's right and everything is the way it should be, we're just in a little crisis, we're still performing pretty great. Yeah, taking a step back and just looking at it from a different perspective sometimes gives you such a good idea of what is going wrong. So, would you maybe um, recommend a few steps to take to build that system, to build that resilience, not just drive yourself into oblivion?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think whatever sort of reflection and benchmarking method you use, commit to taking one small action out of it. So I'm very big on momentum and small steps. So the way that I use this diagnostic, whether it's one-on-one or with teams, is so okay, great. So we have a diagnostic. We understand where the kind of hot areas are and where areas are that we seem to be performing well. What's one quick win you can do in the next 2 weeks that's low cost, high impact for you that will really move the needle on this in the right direction? And also, having an accountability partner for that. So grabbing a friend, maybe you're both doing a quick snapshot together, and then you meet 2 weeks later for 15 minutes stand up super informally and just say, hey, how did it go with the quick win that you wanted to complete? Did you sign up for the swimming pool access at the community center? Did you find yourself walking the dog twice a day instead of once a day? These are the kind of things that I'm interested in. As well, I leverage habits. So really getting a grip on your habits and structures is a very, very worthwhile investment to do, because yeah, every action we take, every habit that we perform each day is a vote for the person that we want to be. That's from James Clear. So yeah, when you start working with quick wins and atomic habits, you see that it's possible to actually rapidly invent and design into areas of your life or of my life that I've wanted to actually improve for a while. I just needed someone to open the door for me and step through. So yeah, I'm very optimistic. I hope I'm coming across as optimistic. It's a very serious topic, but what I've seen from taking a data-driven approach using quick wins and atomic habits is that you can make small investments up front and be on more of a predictive maintenance model, that rather than waiting for you to get into like a shutdown state, as our bodies and our lives are very expensive machines to maintain, Anna.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's true. And I mean, I really want to ask you about the way you kind of help yourself keep track of, those little habits, little things, because I've talked to quite a few people lately for some reason. I mean, everything just fell into the right places when we met and decided to do this AMA. It was all for a reason, and a lot of people, they're founders and very high performing, very their schedules look horrific, honestly. And they were
For
saying
sure.
we've tried quite a few tools, different systems to track like what
Yeah.
we're doing, when we need to relax, when we need to decompress, when we need to focus. And for me, like if I can share, there were two major things that kind of changed my flow first, and I won't get tired of shouting out um, for Beams. Beams is this little teeny tiny toolbar tool that sits on your Mac. I've interviewed the founder, Jana, and at Code Talks in Hamburg, we met with Miri, the second co-founder. Uh, it's the little tool that is they explain it in a way that it's a calm reminder of what's going on during your day, and it just tells me how much time is left until the next meeting. So it doesn't ping, it doesn't make any noises. It's just there.
Hmm.
It's very nice. Like it keeps me so calm. But every other tool, honestly, I couldn't find a better tool than a pen and a paper for myself to keep track of habits and what I do during the day. And again, this is something that I shared with Tobias already the last AMA. Everything that you're doing, and if you feel like you cannot find time to go and decompress, to go and relax, just put it in there in your little checklist on your fridge and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
go check it. I need to relax. I need five minutes to, I don't know, to meditate or take a cold shower. So what about you? Maybe there is a tool
Yeah.
that works magically.
No, I haven't found one either. It's funny you ask. Yeah, I believe that, and I'd love to hear from our listeners what works for you because I'm curious. I'm curious what you use, how you use it. But there are two concepts that are really sticky for me that I believe can work for founders as well, or anyone who might be traveling a lot. So it's tough to have a steady kind of schedule about I do this at 9 a.m., I do this at 6 p.m., right?
Yeah.
So the most important two, I think, for me are habit stacking and gratitude journaling. So habit stacking is not going to, it should be pretty familiar by now, but it's typically taking one thing you want to do and one thing you need to do and linking them one after the other. And you can insert different types of practices or habits that you want to utilize more. So, like my coffee habit, Anna, is not going away anytime soon. I'm going to be honest. Okay. So, if I'd like to do something like 20 jumping jacks every morning before my first cup of coffee, this is a perfect habit stack for me because I'm going to be cued by the environment. I'm going to have a craving, and then I'm going to be able to sort of work with that craving to go, man, imagine how satisfied I'm going to be with that cup of coffee if I just did a little bit of mobility first. And look, now I've got a physical mobility routine that I can do 7 days a week, even if I'm in Paris, London, Tokyo, Berlin, Hamburg, Frankfurt, it doesn't matter. So this is where I'd really encourage founders to get focused. No one can take that away from you. You can do 20 jumping jacks, even standing in the airport security line if you have to. Like, do it. Trust me, it's worth it. And the second one is this idea of gratitude journaling, which is more backward looking. So you mentioned how calendars can look like a horror show, unfortunately. What did we learn from this week that just took place? What is one thing that we're grateful for from others, and what's one thing that we want to pat ourselves on the back about that we did for ourselves this week that really paid off, that really made a difference, for our own body budget, which is kind of our daily well-being, our daily comfort. This body budget concept is a fun one to work with. And having this gratitude journal, or even just saying out loud. So I actually do this every morning. I say 3 things I'm thankful for in this moment, and 3 things that I'm happy I chose to do yesterday. I do this every morning, and it's amazing. I feel like a star coming into my day because I've taken a moment to say I'm happy for the shelter over my head, the warm coffee I'm about to drink, and the cute cat that I got right next to me right now with the plants around. And this really keeps me centered and able to have balance when stuff starts flying in my inbox, meetings start happening, and it's super portable. I can do this from a hotel. I can do this from an airplane. I can do this from wherever I'm at. So portable, compact, quick gratitude journaling and working with that are the 2 things that I would recommend. Yeah.
Interesting.
Habit stacking.
I tried journaling once, I guess. I don't know. Maybe you need to like take more time. I don't know. Wasn't really my thing. Although, I'm like super old school. I get like I have a ton of notebooks just
Perfect.
lying around. I write down everything, but journaling, I don't know. Should I give it another try?
Yeah, well, so I had a similar challenge when I started because I don't have like a journaling mindset built up. So I was like, what do I do here? But I do have a business mindset built up. So maybe if you reframe it as I'm going to look at my schedule and write down 2 to 3 quick bullet points about things that went well, things that worked, and then one thing I want to improve, right? We're used to doing this. We do this all the time. But if we apply it for yourself as the stakeholder, not the business, could you give yourself permission to recognize things that you did really well for yourself, and also one thing that you dare to ask and be courageous to ask to do better for yourself?
Interesting. One thing I also, getting back to the feeds, one thing I read also this week, um, I'm not sure who wrote it, but anyway, it was about just, I think in a way it's journaling, right? It's about building your portfolio. So basically, just putting down every like major achievement. So I don't know, you did really great on an episode somewhere on a podcast, or a post that you shared was really successful, or there was something about product that you did, or you really solved an issue with a customer. So put it all together, kind of build the portfolio of these wins, and then go over it. And in that post, it was more about like just documenting everything for the sake of like getting talent visas or recognition from your employer. But I guess that could also work just in a way that you could have this little folder, and when you're like feeling down, you could go back and say, oh, okay, so I'm actually not that bad.
You're totally on the right track here. So the studies suggest that even if you never go back to it, just the action and practice of sort of actively recognizing that something went well can change our mindset about the job that we're doing and our current life design setup. It can also help us open up a more kind of prospecting mindset to see new possibilities and grow in different directions. So yeah, just the practice of that, it's already really proven to help with resilience for individuals and teams. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about teams, because before that, we had an AMA about recruiting and HR. And also, one thing that we discussed was also a little bit of a toxic trend of everyone and all companies just saying how they all want top talent, they want visionaries, they want people to drive the growth forward. And I get the idea, right? But as one of the speakers said, sometimes you just need someone to do the job. And that's, I completely agree, right? You cannot just run on visionaries. So how to, how to also cultivate a bit of a, healthier diversity stack at your workplace,
Yeah.
and how to like kind of move away from that toxicity situation that we've got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this one. So the key for me is about self-directed career progression, not top down. So what do I mean by this? Yes, of course, we need to recruit and hire for diverse skill sets, perspectives, and people so that we can build the best products possible. Once once we're looking at the teams that we've got, how can we ensure that they're as productive as possible, that they're as engaged as possible, and that hopefully they recommend us as a great place to work and help hire other top performers as well? So for me, it's really about taking a scalable solution to the idea of career progression planning and radically empowering the individual. So I spend a lot of time looking at what's wrong with career progression conversations. Why do they seem to fail? Why are our kind of annual performance review standards disliked by everyone who participates and found to be very ineffective? So there's a lot of disruption in thinking in this space now, both about performance management and career. But just to make this more concrete, it is really tough to be motivated every day at work if we don't see a larger vision for ourselves and why we're making the sacrifices that we're doing. So it's really helpful to equip, enable, and give opportunities for people to set, an ambitious vision for themselves, and then work backwards and put that into concrete milestones and in some sort of career planning document or tool. So I have built such tools and assets, and I've deployed them for teams. And what I found is that 80% plus of attendees from such an enablement session have a higher degree of confidence in reaching their next career step. And managers and leaders love it because people are showing up to their next career conversation with a lot more clarity of ask for support, clarity of direction, and people are getting much more proactive about things like getting visibility or getting the right mentors, getting the right projects. So I think it's very tough for organizations to solve this top down. The best that we can do is give space for individuals and really have a high standard, have a high expectation that individuals will define and self-direct their own career progression, especially in the age of AI rewriting everyone's job description and shuffling how things are performed and by whom and where. So yeah, radical individualization at scale is the way that I approach that.
Okay, that's great. I also wanted to ask about, earlier stages, where in a company, you don't necessarily go there because you like the company, right? There is nothing to like yet sometimes, right? It's just about building the product. There is no venture that's been built, right? Sometimes founders don't really think about the culture that they're cultivating. It's startup. We've all watched the Silicon Valley. We know what it is. Everyone's grinding. Everyone has the vision. Uh, how to live there, because you have to be motivated. You're right. Sometimes you're in that space where you want to work 24/7 because you're building something big. Um, and I think it's great, right? In a startup, you have to be motivated, right? Investors invest in people and the idea and your charisma and everything. But sometimes it affects people and it affects the dynamic in the team. So, what would you recommend to earlier stage founders and teams in order to prevent burnout and actually get to high performance and to achieve their goals?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love this topic. It's really fascinating because it requires that we do a piece of work for ourselves, really around core values and life purpose. So, core values and life purpose can really establish a bedrock for us to then build on with my concept of choice is this idea of life design. So life design is essentially how you have set up your commitments, what commitments you've made, where you're investing your time, effort, money, everything, and then how that translates into what your month looks like and what you're really putting your energy and effort into every day. And if your life design is out of alignment with your core values and life purpose, it's not going to be very sustainable. You can acknowledge that, you can do it for a limited time, but what I would say to early stage founders is like, the question I'm interested in is not, do you believe in the product or do you believe in the team? Like, of course you do, and you should. The question is more, how does this relate to your core values and your life purpose? And are you aware? Are you reflecting, and are you checking in regularly about what this life design means for you in terms of costs and opportunities? And then really a follow-up to that, Anna, is what we talked about earlier. How can we program and design habits and structures into this life design that you're performing to help you be as resilient as possible, to help you be as high performance as possible? Now that you know that, yes, this is aligned, yes, I'm actively choosing this, I'm being intentional about it, that's a place of extreme confidence and clarity that people reach after doing that work. And I think it impacts the whole team, the whole organization under them, no matter what stage they're at. And it's really worthwhile, and it should be done regularly with founders. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Thanks so much for sharing this because, well, we're also working with companies that are a little bit smaller that may not necessarily thought about that. So I think it's really important, especially when you're coming into like a bigger setting, to just understand what you are and who you are and how you want to work. All right. So just maybe one more question that I wanted to ask. The usual one, everyone gets it. What is the hack that you could recommend that works for you? Could be completely, unconventional. Could be something, very unusual for others, but it works for you in terms of preventing burnout and in terms of, staying focused on what you're working on. Yeah, share
Yeah,
away.
I love it. So much fun. Yeah. Um, so I have one in mind. It's because, so I've shared this before with other people and they thought it was kind of weird and a bit funny, but I've been doing it for 2 years now and I just swear by it and it's really working for me. So um, I have a blocker in my calendar at a fixed time. For me, it's 3 p.m. And I did this because I noticed that I was just fading so hard at 3 p.m. every day. And if I did a meeting with someone, like I was like a gargoyle, I was so grumpy. I was just terrible to be with. And I was like, what is this about? Why am I showing up like that? And why is it always happening at the, like, I think my wife calls it my witching hour. It's just like, I can't even do anything. So instead of trying to force that and push that, I just have a blocker and there are no meetings taking place. It's my regeneration blocker. And then I got curious about what is like a regeneration sequence that I could do so that I could be as with it and active and productive in the after 3 p.m. segment as I am in kind of my morning, like 9:30 to 11. And what I've come to is this sequence, and you can play with it or adjust it or switch something in. Maybe I do a 12-minute timed power nap, maximum 12 minutes. Then I set some tea starting, and then I do a 12 to 14 minute timed meditation. So we're at about 26 minutes now. And then I consume, yeah, I have it next to me now. I consume typically like one or two dates or something that is like a concentrated high value sugar to get my blood sugar going, but is not a processed sugar. I also crave cake a lot. I'm not going to lie. I love a good coffee and cake in the afternoon, but I try to use like dates, the fruit as my sugar option. And then by 3:29, I am ripping. I'm like sending out like every email. Everyone's getting their recap. Everything is up to date. My next meetings are just on point. I'm crushing again. So yeah, this is my little hack. It's my 30-minute regen blocker with 12-minute power nap, 12 to 14-minute meditation, green tea, like a fine green tea, and dates.
Fun. It sounds like fun. And honestly, I think a lot of people are like, what? Like, how can you sleep for 12 minutes? And honestly, I'm there with you. Like, especially when I was expecting my baby. Uh, and I didn't have a maternity leave of any kind, not before, not after. Uh,
Oh,
when I was like super exhausted, I was like, okay, I have like 10 minutes until my meeting, and I would time my nap to 7, and I would immediately just crash, wake up after
yeah,
7 minutes, completely new person. So,
that's right.
yes, I think it really depends on first, like how flashed you are, basically, if you're even able to fall asleep. And second, it's just about the habit. So, like, you put your alarm on, and yeah, you go to sleep. Basically, you close your eyes. That's it.
Yep.
Um, I think that's a great habit. For me, it's also it's running. Well, you cannot just run for 7 minutes. It's not fun, but I run a bit longer. I run for like 5 7 kilometers, but that you know that's such a game changer. Never ran before, but once I started, I realized how much more energy you have. It's crazy. Um,
Yeah, maybe on that really quick, the physical fitness piece, because physical well-being is so important. The way that I've found to hack that into my winter months was having kind of easy indoor workout stuff around, like a yoga mat, kettlebell. I even have like a travel yoga mat that folds up really small that I can bring with me and stick to my kind of morning and evening cool down habits. But bringing the creativity piece back, I knew that I wanted to do more kettlebell lifting, and I also wanted to practice music more. So I actually have my DJ set up next to my yoga mat where I have the kettlebells out. So it's like easy, attractive. I put some great music on. I start lifting, and then I'm like, oh, track's almost over. Let me just get in here and get this next mix. And it also trains me for mixing under pressure or when I'm distracted. If I've just been doing some kettlebells and then I need to quickly get in there. So in 15 to 25 minutes, I've done two things that I want to make sure that I do at least like twice or three times a week. And I just feel so great because that habit stack has happened. I put those two things next to each other and they kind of mutually support each other. Yeah.
yeah, that's perfect. Well, I think it's also a great thing that you have it in your calendar, because I'm the same. Once it's in the calendar, it should be done, or the freak in me is gonna go crazy. but um, but yeah, thanks so much for sharing this. I think this is a very quirky kind of hack, but yeah, it makes sense. I mean, a bit of calm, a bit of sugar, and on the
Right.
other hand, a bit of sport to get your blood going. So tomorrow, all the listeners go are going to the shop to buy dates and kettlebells.
Yes.
So
Yes.
let's do it. Um,
Yeah.
link your favorite um, dates brand. I'll try to find it in Vietnam.
Yeah, there's a startup here in Germany that does amazing bulk foods delivery, and so if anyone wants to know who it is, just DM me after the episode because I I buy them
No
in
ads
bulk
on
now.
the
It's
on
so
the
good.
podcast.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. They can sponsor the next one, but yeah, just drop me a note if you'd like to get a serious dates hookup. And yeah, just wrapping this up as well on luxury. So the kind of third thing that any founder can bring with them is I like to declare two luxuries for myself each month. And it can be a secret or you can share this with someone. But what it is two things that you really appreciate that you are committing to savor and be in the moment with when you're enjoying them for that month. So for me, I think the month that I started my new job, I knew it was going to be stressful. So part of my well-being plan was chocolate and red wine are going to be my luxuries this month. So I took joy in procuring some really specific chocolates I'd be really interested in. And I took pleasure in like browsing and really taking my time to select some red wines that I'd never tried before that I was always curious about. And then in those moments, I just gave myself permission to not be multitasking, not be thinking, not be worrying, and just saying, like, I'm in my moment here with this chocolate or with this red wine. And clients of mine have, use different things for luxuries. You can surprise yourself. What's a luxury to you is what matters most. So yeah, feel free to experiment with that. It's something that travels well as well.
Oh, yes. I have yes Saturdays. So I call them yes Saturdays. Anything I want on a Saturday, I say yes to. So I don't want to cook. I want to go to a restaurant. Yes. I don't
Nice.
I don't want to run. I want to
Yeah.
go surfing. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Everything is a yes, right? I don't want to do something. I want to go jump on a trampoline with my son.
Yes.
Definitely yes. So yeah, I would also recommend that. Like once I was kind of like, because on a weekend you sometimes also freaked out because like you want to, I don't know, do something in the house, you want to clean, you want to cook, you want to do laundry, you want to blah blah blah, and then it was like, oh no, it was a long
Yeah.
week. Let's just say yes to all the pleasures.
Yeah.
And then you feel
Yeah.
so much better. And on a Sunday, you can get to that laundry thing lying around. So try it.
Yeah. Yeah. And this satisfaction stuff, it's also in our brain chemistry, it's in our kind of stomach enzymes, all this idea of satisfaction, fulfillment, satiation. Tapping in and being aware of that, I learned this week, is called interoception. So interoception is our ability to be tuned into the signals from our body, whether it's our digestive system, our hormones, different things like that. And people who this is like super, reading a book called Leading in a Nonlinear World, and they're saying that folks that develop a stronger sense of interoception are able to be more consistently at their peak performance because they're not hitting these high highs and low lows, and they're staying tuned into the signals from their body, signals from our emotions, etc. So I think that yes, Saturdays is a really cool way to practice and develop interoception from a scientific perspective as well.
Yes, it's so scientific, folks. So try it. Well, thank you, Neil, so much. I mean, it's been so much fun. I didn't even know if I could do this because of my throat. I don't know what happened, but it was great fun. Thank you so much for making the time. I think it was super valuable and super structured in the best possible way, and a lot of really actionable insights. So thanks for sharing them, and happy to do it again anytime.
Yeah, thanks so much, Anna. Yeah, it's been a pleasure sitting down with you on the SaaS Group AMA here, and really excited to hear from anyone in the comments or otherwise who sparked an idea from this and wants to try a new luxury, has a new habit stack in mind. And let's all get proactive and invest in ourselves because there's only one of us, and we're important.
Yeah, we are. Thank you so much, Neil, and take care.